What's up, guys? Welcome to Propelio TV. Today I'm going to be talking about flipping houses one-on-one. I'm going to be talking about how to rehab houses from A to Z in the most efficient way that works for me and my business. So stay tuned.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Batch Skip Tracing, Think Multifamily, CreativeCashflow.com, and Lifeonaire.
What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about flipping houses one-on-one. So I'm going to give you some really juicy details that works for my business and how you guys can streamline your flipping rehabbing business to make it a little bit more efficient and more profitable so you can do more deals and make more money, right? All right, so the first thing I want to go over with you guys on flipping houses one-on-one is kind of where to find deals, how to find them, what to expect when you're buying these deals, how to evaluate them, how to find subs, what to work on in a step of processes when you start the construction, and then actually how to sell it on the backside, and then how to reinvest back into your business. Okay, cool. So let's talk about how to find deals. Obviously, there's thousands of videos on marketing, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to dive too much in detail because you can skip past some of these videos and find different marketing avenues, but this is kind of what works for me in my business. So networking is probably one of the most efficient ways for me in my business on how to find deals. Just because you can network with a bunch of people that you personally know on social media. Let pretty much everybody know that you personally know should know that you're, hey, I buy houses, right? I'm a fix and flipper, I rehab houses. Now you have to understand, if you're a wholesaler or a fix and flipper, you should still kind of have that same message is I buy houses for cash, right? And you're gonna find a lot of opportunity with people that you personally know and trust you. That's gonna send you opportunities on deals where you can take full advantage of. All right, the next one's gonna be events with wholesalers. And this is probably one of my bread and butters to find rehab deals is from wholesalers and at networking events. People go to these events to network and find real cash buyers to find their deals, and they're wholesalers, right? So they do the marketing, they do the sales portion, they lock the deals up under contract, and they're looking for the end cash buyer, which gives you as a cash investor or rehabber a prime opportunity to take full advantage of these deals. So one of the things I want to talk about through this process is why it's important to kind of work through these steps is because you never know. You might have a wholesaler that you build a relationship with. They might send you 10, 20 deals, but if just one deal works for you, then you can capitalize on that deal and make 20, 30, 40, hey, $100,000 just because you built that one relationship. So networking and going to these events are super key because once you develop these relationships, you start buying deals, people are gonna start to get to know you. Hey, this person buys houses. You buy a house from somebody one time and make it super easy for them. They're gonna tell their friends and their other wholesaler friends, hey, this person actually buys houses, and then it's just a constant repeat business cycle. Now, obviously you can start marketing for your own deals, which is a little bit more expensive. Obviously, if you guys have the capital and the time to actually do that and the sales process, you guys are more than welcome to do that. I find a bunch of deals, obviously, through marketing because I have my own company and a sales team to find these deals, and we do some wholesaling and we do rehabs as well. But I'm telling you guys, these are the most efficient ways that work for me in my business on finding rehab deals. Now, I'm not gonna dive too much into the dynamics of acquiring them because I'm gonna talk about that on future shows. There's also other shows you can watch on that. I want to focus more on the actual process of flipping that actual house to make it most efficient for you. All right, so moving on. All right, so what to kind of look at when you're evaluating a property. So the most important thing that you should look at when you're evaluating a property is going to be the after repair value, so the ARV. So after repair value, what is the property going to be worth after it's fixed up? What can you sell it for? And you kind of look at other properties in that area. In Texas, what I do is I stick to the same subdivision. I normally go about a quarter mile out or 6 to 9 months out. But the more conservative as possible, the more safe you're going to be on that ARV when you go to resell it. But you want to kind of evaluate what's the worst thing that it could possibly happen when I resell it. And I'm not saying look at other comps that have sold for lower price points, et cetera, et cetera. When you're looking for the ARV, you want to look for other properties in that area that have been fixed and flipped or fixed up. Because, for example, if you find a house that was built in 1960, for example, and you see another house that was built in 2011, those are going to be completely different comps. You don't want to comp it off that property. But if you look at a house that's 1960, it's not fixed up and what it sold for, and a house that was built in 1960 and it has been fixed up and what that sold for, those are going to be different comps. So you really want to dive into those comps to find the properties that have been fixed and flipped, and it looks like there was work done by an investor and resold on the market. All right. So that's kind of how I pull comps on the ARV, but that's what's important when you're evaluating the deals. The next thing you want to look at is going to be the big three. The big three. And what I mean by the big three, you have roof, you have foundation, and then you have HVAC. And the reason why the big three is the most important is because those are going to be the most expensive portions of the property when you go to buy it and actually put work into it. These are also going to be the aspects on the type of work that you need to put in first into the property before you work on other cosmetic stuff into the property. But typically, if you know the big three and you evaluated the big three, the cosmetic challenges that you have are going to be a lot easier just because these are the most expensive portions. So when you guys are evaluating your rehab budget, then you can mostly rely on these big three as well as a little bit of the cosmetics, but these are going to be the most expensive. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is kind of where to find subs. So let's just say you found a property, it's at a good price. Let's just say you bought it at 70, 80% or whatever it is, on how to find good subs and loyal subs that do good work at a cheap price. And what I mean by that is I want you guys to make as much money as possible when you're flipping houses. And typically when people think of flipping houses, they think they either have to do the repairs themselves or they have to pay a GC or a contracting company to do all the work for them. That is not true. I actually used a GC a few times when I've scaled my business. I mean, obviously past 10 properties a month and I couldn't really hire all the subs myself, but it's actually really simple to hire the subs because you have to understand a GC is actually what they're going to do is they're going to hire a whole bunch of subs to do all the work and then they're going to keep their fee as a GC, and I'm trying to teach you guys how to cut the GC out of the process completely so you guys can make the deal as profitable as possible. So what I normally do is I drive around, kind of like when you guys drive for dollars, and I look for specific things in neighborhoods. So if, obviously you guys drive everywhere, right? So if you're driving around and you see pickup trucks that are working on houses, I don't look for pickup trucks that are like brand new, that's like fresh out the parking lot, et cetera, et cetera. Those are typically GCs that are at the property managing the site. What I'm looking for is kind of like a good, decent condition, older pickup truck or van that doesn't have any decals on the property. So I'm looking for work trucks, work vans, no decals. And the reason why I don't like decals is because typically when somebody has decals on a truck, they don't necessarily have a referral business. And what I mean by that is they're marketing constantly, trying to find work to do work. And typically when people have to do a bunch of marketing, they don't have a referral business. But I'm looking for the people with referral business before I even ask for referrals, right? These are people that are currently working right now on properties and they constantly have work. I'm also looking for subs that have work lined up. They have work lined up. So if you say, for example, you're looking for a paint guy and the paint guy's like, hey, I can't work on the property for another 2 or 3 weeks because I have all these jobs lined up. Chances are he has jobs lined up because he does good work on properties at a good price. And those are the type of subs that I'm looking for, is because, hey, I have time to find these subs because I actually submitted the offer. I have like 10, 12 days to close. It's good timing, so I can line this guy up and he's solid, right? And these are, I mean, just these two aspects help me dramatically on finding subs, especially if I've never been in the area before. All right, but before we move on, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm gonna dive more into this topic.
The Propelio Academy, an all-in-one education resource for training in wholesales, subject to wraps, short sales, flips, rentals, BRRRR, property management, and more. Go to propelio.com/academy to get your scholarship today. Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at propelio.com.
All right, guys, welcome back. We good? Yeah. All right, guys, welcome back. So we're driving around kind of like we're driving for dollars, looking for these work trucks or work vans that are in good condition and they don't have any decals. And I'm also looking for people that have work lined up, but I'm also asking around for referrals from my investor friends. Because these are also really effective, because obviously if you have somebody, hey, one of your friends flips like 100 houses a year, great, he probably has a good sub team. I'm either going to team up with him or I'm going to kind of convince him to give me his network of subs and be like, hey, who's really good at painting? Chances are if he doesn't have a job that's working on, he wants to keep that guy busy and he's going to toss you that referral, and then you could treat that guy good and you can add him to your team. But chances are, yeah, you want to check your referrals too, and you can do this pretty easily like on Facebook groups or networking events, because remember, you're always networking. And when you're scrolling through and you're asking for referrals, typically, especially like on Facebook, you have like subs, wives, or people that work at their company are constantly posting ads. Those aren't referrals, those are advertisements. There's a big difference. You're looking for, hey, this person did this job on this date, they did an amazing job, call this guy. And then I'm actually gonna DM that person that actually used it, be like, hey, do you have any pictures of that property he did work on? I wanna take a look at it. Make sure you brief those referrals, because you can't trust everybody, especially when you pay them money and trust them to do the work. So, I mean, honestly, this is what's worked for me in my business, and I've done over 140 rehabs from A to Z, and this is pretty much all I've did. So I'm explaining to you guys what works for me in my business. All right, so this is kind of finding the subs. All right, moving on. So you found the property, you found the subs, and you're going to close. What's kind of the first thing that you should work on first when you're working on the property? The first thing that you guys should work on, especially if it has foundation issues, is I'm paying attention to the foundation. And that's gonna be the first and foremost thing that I'm gonna do when I start working on a property, is because the foundation, just like in life, your foundation is everything. So if the foundation is jacked up or all over the place, it kind of makes a big difference on cosmetic and even roof damages when you go to evaluate and fix that foundation. So I'm gonna fix that foundation. I have subs that can actually do the foundation through my referral network and my driving for dollars. And they're digging up the foundation. It might need however many piers. But when the foundation is pulled, or I'm sorry, when people are digging out the foundation and they start working on the foundation, the next step that I want to do during that process is I want to go ahead and do a plumbing test. So I want to do a plumbing test throughout obviously all the plumbing throughout the property. And the reason why I'm doing it is while the foundation is up in the air or dug out is because let's just say there is foundation damage under the property. And a lot of times the foundation have moved because of water, because it's pretty powerful and the water gets under the property and it moves the foundation. So while that foundation is dug up, doing my plumbing test, and let's just say it does need plumbing work, I'm actually going to convince my foundation company and those subs to actually do some of that digging under the property so we can actually fix that plumbing. And that's going to save you a ton of money, so you don't have to pay a professional plumbing company to do that digging, because they're going to charge you times 10. And the cool thing about real estate is everything's negotiable. Typically these foundation people understand that process if they're experienced, but if they're not, it's like, hey, this is some extra cash that I can pay my guys, or this is more cash that I can make if I just dig a couple more feet under the property and they're digging anyway. So it makes it a lot more cost efficient when you have to do plumbing work. All right, so you got your foundation fixed, you got your plumbing fixed. The next thing I want to look at is the electric and the HVAC, make sure that's good to go. And the reason being is because there's some cases where I have my team staying in the property after it's livable, just so they can get that job done as fast as possible because I'm paying holding costs with hard money or private money. And I want to house them at that property so they can work essentially all hours of the night. My team's pretty good. So yeah, I'm not saying that's going to happen overnight, but eventually that's kind of a good way to get properties done a lot faster is by housing your team in the properties, and it's good for security as well. So I got my electric done, got my HVAC done. Now I'm going to look at the roof. I'm going to make sure the roof's good, do some roof inspections, make sure that's good to go, because when you go to sell it, the bank's going to look at all of that, so you can't half-ass those big 3 items. All right, the next thing I'm going to focus on is going to be some of the cosmetic stuff. Now, typically when people are like first-time home flippers and they want to flip a house, they normally look on HGTV and see all these extravagant rehabs that are done to properties, and that's what they kind of think they have to do to the property. I'm not saying that's what you have to do. In my rehabs, I do just enough to make it the nicest house in the neighborhood, and that's it. So I don't over-exaggerate my rehabs because that costs money, and typically when you go to resell it, the banks are going to look at other properties that sold in those conditions, but the price points kind of cap out at a certain point, so you don't want to worry about appraisals. But even before I bought it at a good price. But that's a different topic. So for example, when it comes to knocking down walls, I typically never knock down any walls just because it's kind of irrelevant if all the comps that were flipped in the area, they didn't knock any walls down. So why should I knock down walls? That just costs more money when people are still going to buy it the way it looks structure-wise, right? So you want to make it as simple as possible, but you want to make it the nicest house in that area so you don't have a problem reselling it. So yeah, focus on some certain cosmetic stuff, and what I mean by that is bathroom upgrades, kitchen upgrades, and I mean, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've never changed cabinets out except for in the bathrooms. Typically, cabinets in the kitchen you can keep there, especially in our market now. People are still buying those properties. You can still sand them out and paint them, and that is a lot more cost efficient than putting brand new cabinets in. But I do put granite in the kitchen, and I make it match the bathrooms, because when you go to resell the property, you have to understand you're going to most likely sell it to a first-time home buyer or a family, right? So family has kids, and if people have kids, you have a husband and a wife. So when people come tour your houses, the biggest person that you have to convince to buy that house is going to be the woman. Women are the most powerful people in the world. They make all the decisions, and they're going to be paying attention to all the details in the kitchen and in the bathroom. So if you're going to invest money anywhere, invest it mostly into the kitchen and into the bathrooms, and the rest of the stuff's just going to be cosmetic, like paint and carpet, hard floors, or whatever. So yes, I put granite in every property regardless of the price point, because granite hard counters makes a big difference. Stainless steel appliances, spend that extra $1,000 or $2,000 to do those features, and it's going to make a big difference on reselling it on the backside. All right, then I'm going to focus on the drywall. And the reason why I wanted to wait till almost to the end is because you have to wait for that foundation to level out. So if you put the drywall in too soon, the foundation can still level out, and then it cracks again, and then you have to redo it. So finish the drywall, and then I want to paint the property all around, make it super nice so it smells brand new, right? So fresh paint, it smells like a brand new car when you walk in, and if it's a 1950 build, 1980 build, doesn't matter, you paint it, it smells like fresh paint. When you go to resell it, it's like, man, this smells good, it smells brand new, it smells like a new build house, right? Just because you painted it. And then after I paint it, I put the floors in, and it makes it a lot easier when you put the floors in last, because I mean, obviously you don't want to mess the carpet or the hard floors out or hard floors up with paint, just because you want to make it easier for your labor guys. So that's kind of the process in which I do it, so I can kind of write it out for you guys. So I do foundation, I do plumbing, and then I do electric, and then I do HVAC, and then I do Cosmo, then I do drywall, then I do paint, then I do floors, Then after the floors are in, I put the appliances in. Appliances. So just in that order is exactly the process in which I train my team on flipping properties from A to Z. So once all of this is complete, then I have a staging company come into the property. And to be really cost efficient, especially if you're doing multiple flips per month, is just get a storage room, pay $80 for a storage room, go on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, start buying nice furniture constantly, or have a female or assign somebody on your team that is a woman to buy and give these tasks, or give those tasks to her to buy furniture constantly, so you can start staging the properties yourself. And you can stage a property for, I mean, $1,000 really, with a full-blown furniture in the master bedroom, the living room, the kitchen, with some IKEA accessories, and it makes the property look nice. Because Envision, when you go to resell it, they can actually visualize themselves living there with all these nice features versus it just being empty. And I have had a lot more success by staging the property before I go to resell it, just based off of that, because you have to be competitive when you go to resell it. So if there's 2 flips going on in that neighborhood, one person is not going to stage it, I am, and I can save a lot more on the construction costs just by staging it, right? There's properties that are literally just painted and staged it, and it looked brand new, and it smelled brand new, and it was not as the nicest house in the neighborhood, but it still sold for the most just because people could visualize themselves living there. So I saved a ton of money, which made my flip a lot more profitable. Now you guys have to understand is I'm not telling you guys to be cheap on your products. I am telling you guys how to be more efficient when you're spending money. And when you go to do your fix and flips, you have to make that product really good as if you're going to live there. Because how are you going to convince somebody to sell or to buy your house if you wouldn't even buy it? Does that make sense? So if you wouldn't live there, you didn't do a good job. And worst possible case scenario, if the market goes to crap, and you could just move into the rehab yourself, right? So make it nice enough where you would live there. I'm not saying you have to make it exactly the way you want it to look, but off of that area and those comps on how they look, and clean enough and nice enough if you are going to live there, regardless of how successful you are. So this is what has been working for my business in the construction standpoint. And I'm going to go on to the next topic on kind of the best ways to sell it on saving costs. All right, so you found the property, you found your subs, you did the construction, you staged it. Now it's going to be time to resell the property. So this has what's worked for me when I want to go resell the property. And what I did is, obviously I want to list it as most as I possibly can, but you have to be careful because you don't want people to think, hey, this is too expensive, or this is not going to appraise, et cetera, et cetera. So I actually list it 3 to 5,000 less than the highest selling comp. And here's why this is important, is because when you go to rebuttal realtors in the area, and they're always going to try to give you sales tactics, et cetera, why it's not worth that, et cetera, so they can get it as cheap as possible. But I'm going to list it cheaper than the highest selling comp, and here's why. Is because you're going to gain a bunch of attention on that property when you list it below retail value. So even though I fixed and flipped it, I listed it slightly below retail value so I can get a bunch of people to look at the property, which creates momentum. And it's pretty funny is because if you see somebody, if you're going to shop a property and somebody's looking at it right before you're about to go look at it, chances are it's like, hey, it drives that fear of loss. It's like somebody else is going to get this, so I need to submit my offer right now. So I want to drive as much attention to that property as possible. But before some quick tips on how I list it is I pay a flat fee. I either pay a flat fee or I pay 1%. I always recommend paying with that 1% listing agent because they're going to help you sell it. They're going to put some hustle behind actually selling it. They care about it. If you pay a one-time listing agent, they're just going to be like, hey, it's on MLS, good luck, right? But if you pay that 1% listing agent, that person wants to sell that property because they're going to make money on it, right? I'm not saying you have to pay 3%, but you're going to save 2% in that entire process versus listing it traditionally. And I get an argument sometimes, it's just like, why not just pay 3% and take care of your agent? Well, I'm taking care of that agent is because I'm saving a bunch of money on my construction costs, and I'm buying a bunch of rehabs, and I'm giving them all of my listings, and they're going to have a ton of work to do. So a traditional agent is going to list 3 to 5 houses a year. They have a traditional job, et cetera, et cetera. It's my goal. It's like, I'm going to give that listing agent 100 listings this year, and they're going to make a bunch of money just off that 1%, and they're going to go for it all day long. All right, the next thing that I do is I can list it on ListingSpark, and it's $7 per day. Now, obviously, it's going to take time for you to actually reach out to these agents after they view your property, but it's very cost efficient because ListingSpark actually includes pictures, signs, listing on MLS, listing it on Zillow, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can take that link and market it on Facebook, Facebook Marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. But $7 a day, you can't beat that. Especially if you're a salesperson, you can actually have more control of that listing and reaching out to those showing agents that actually view the property and negotiate with them. And you can hear a lot of feedback on, hey, what's wrong with the property? Why didn't they want to buy it? You guys looked at it. What price are you guys going to buy it at? How can we make money together as a team and sell this property, right? So just by this, you could save thousands and thousands of dollars just on the backside, and that's why it's efficient. Hey, you could list it 3,000 to 5,000 less than that full retail, because people are always going to bid higher because they see that there's a bunch of activity at the property because it's the nicest property in the area. It's a pretty popular area or whatever, but you want to drive as much traction to that property as possible. So a couple other tricks that I do is you want to find hustling showing agents. And one tactic that I did to actually find this tactic is, for one, you want to list it for coming soon even before you list it. So even before you even go to list it or have a listing a listing agent or whatever, you want to have somebody listed as, hey, this is coming soon, and then you have a picture of the front of the property or maybe a nice picture of a room that's done. And I'm listing it as coming soon, and I'm sorry I forgot that portion in the steps, but even before I go to paint the property, I listed it as coming soon. And I've sold multiple properties every month where people come in, they see the property, and I'm coaching the agent that's showing the property. It's like, hey, we're almost done with this property. We're going to list it for top dollar. Here's your chance to get your client in. And hey, even they can pick out paint or the paint color that they want in the property to make it more beneficial for them. And if you can sell it, or when you sell it before you actually list it, you save on a lot of cost with staging, because then you don't even have to stage it. But then it's you already have a buyer in place. You paint it the way they want because you're going to paint it anyways, and then the buyer's happier, you're happier, the agent's happier, your one-time listing agent's happier, et cetera, et cetera. You move on to the next deal. But this saves a lot of time, because when it goes to the days on market, it doesn't really affect that. But I mean, there's other tactics in which you can do that I'm not going to really discuss. But moving on. All right, let's just say you list the property for 30 days. You have the market on the property for 30 days, and it doesn't sell, right? What I've done is you want to get attention to the property. So chances are, if that property is listed for more than 30 days and people still see it listed, you're like, oh crap, I listed it less than retail. People aren't really looking at it. What am I going to do? I'm going to lose money. I'm going to lose my butt. No, that's not the case. What you want to do is cancel that listing agreement and list it with a different broker. And when you list it with a different broker after 48 hours, it shows up as a new listing. So you don't want to do price drops ever, because that's going to hurt that listing. People are going to be like, why aren't people buying it? Why should I even go look at it? When you can just take it off the market completely, wait 48 hours, get all that feedback of the people that did, and do some adjustments, spend a couple extra $1,000s to get it up and running again, and fix those issues. You kink that out, and then you relist it with a different agent or a broker. The agent actually has to be with a different agent. So if you have a one-time listing agent with Keller Williams, you can't list it with another Keller Williams, because it's not going to show up as a new listing. It's super key, because yeah, there's some properties that don't sell right away, and you want to get as much attention in there as possible so you can build momentum and just get rid of it if you have to, especially if you're doing volume. But this has helped me dramatically, and typically it always sells because I got that feedback, relisted it, now people are happy again, et cetera, et cetera. Now, like I said, how to get hustling buying agents to come look at your property. The end commission when you go to list it, typically it's 3%, right? So what I normally do, especially if I really want to get rid of a property, I list that end buyer's agent at 4%, right? So remember, I bought it conservatively. I'm not trying to make $1 million on the property. I've had it too long. So I list it with a 4% commission on the backside, and I'm still only paying 1% of that $7, but I'm not cheap. I want to sell this property. It's not my goal to make $1 million on it. It's my goal is to get rid of it, make some money, and move on to the next one. So I'm going to find really hustling agents that actually filter their criteria, where the first houses that they look at is with these higher commission standpoints. And especially if I list it on ListingSpark, it's like, yo, I'll pay you extra 1% if you can convince them to buy it. Because you have to understand, those agents that are shopping your property with their clients, their job is to sell houses, right? They don't want to drive around in a minivan all day and shop at 100,000 houses. You want to convince them to sell that house and why it's important. And hey, sometimes you have that listing agent where they get really greedy. It's like, dude, I'll pay you extra 1%. You can get rid of this house like right now. Convince them to buy it, or tell me what they need and whatever. Or you could be like, what do they need for them to actually purchase it? And I've even had some people, it's just like they really like it, but the paint's off, right? Why would you lose a deal when you can paint a room a different color? It costs you $200 to do that versus a couple thousand by not selling it in that time frame, right? So feedback is super important, especially when people look at the property. Have your listing agent build those relationships with those people and get that feedback because you can hear what people are saying when they walk through the property. So obviously, I do a bunch of rehabs, and you're not going to be that efficient right up front, but through trial and error, you're going to get better over time. You're going to find certain things that people like in properties that you're going to continue to understand. So when you go on to the next project, it's like, hey, maybe I should put this into the property because a majority of people like that, or they didn't like that, based off the specific price points and areas, right? So this is what's been working for me in my business. All right, the next thing I want to go over with you guys is the repeat method. So I have a lot of young friends that go and do rehabs, and they do like 3 or 4 a year, which is all cute and fine. But what is your goal when you're flipping houses? Is it your goal to have a hobby, make houses look nice, paste it on social media to look cool like I buy houses, et cetera, or is it your goal to make money, right? So if it's not your goal to make money, then I feel like you're going to lose a ton of money and you're going to waste a lot of time. And that's super important to understand, is because you don't want to have emotional attachment on these properties. Because if you did have emotional attachment, why don't you live there? And I know a lot of fix and flippers that are like that because their wives or whoever, or they watch HGTV all day, they have this idea, it's like this is how much they're making, et cetera, and then they get greedy, or they have this huge emotional attachment to it because they did all the work or they spent a lot of time there. Get rid of these properties as fast as you possibly can, and sometimes you might take a loss, right? And I might be the first person on Propelio to tell you it's gonna happen, especially when you're doing volume. But I'm telling you, when you make losses in business, you're gonna learn from them, and you're gonna learn how not to do that or how to do it better in the next time. All right, so let's go back to the aspect of how to scale your business on flipping houses from 3 to 5 houses a year to 10 a month. And this is really what's been working for me. 3 to 5 houses versus 10 a month. So I know a bunch of people in real estate where it's just like you have to buy it right, you have to buy it at this specific criteria, or don't do it. But what you guys have to understand is what's more valuable, time or money? For me, it's time. For you, it should be time, because time is going to go by either way. So what I mean by that is I buy my houses myself, even to this very day, even though I have a big wholesaling company, at 80% ARV. And the reason why I do that is because I can buy more houses because I know I'm going to pay market price for the wholesale deal because I didn't do any of the marketing, right? Now, if I want to buy a house cheaper, I do my own marketing. And people will be like, I don't buy houses at 80% ARV, et cetera, and they get all these big muscles and super cocky, and I buy houses at 50%. I'm like, cool, how many rehabs do you do? And they'll tell me, like, I do like 3 to 5 a year and I'm good. I'm like, well, that's not good enough for me, right? I want to make a bunch of money, right? So if you look at it from a perspective, like if you did 3 to 5 houses a year and you made 30K per house, you're at 90K a year to 150K a year. right? That's at 30K profit per house, right? Which is good. You want to be here. Or you can look at it from a standpoint, it's like, I'm going to buy from wholesalers and make 16K profit per property. So if you do some quick math, at 10 a month, that's $160,000 a month versus $90,000 to $150,000 a year. Which one's going to be more profitable? Or which one's more money with time, right? So at $160,000 a month, that's almost $2 million a year. So 1.9 a year versus 150K, right? You follow what I'm saying? So greed will hurt you in business. It will, and I've experienced that. So what I realized was I'm seeing all these deals that are being posted for 80, 85% or whatever, and when I was super conservative, it's like I'm only buying houses at 60%. I lost out on a lot of time by passing up on a bunch of opportunity where I knew I could make money because I was looking for that best deal. When you want to scale in volume, you have to understand that you're going to pay more to your team, to your management team, to wholesalers, to whatever, in marketing even, to scale your business. You have to understand that. But if you look at it in a perspective of that ROI on your time, it's a lot different when, hey, this is the ROI on my money, right? So that is kind of how I scaled my wholesaling business because, yeah, it's just like I stopped looking at the aspect, it's like I'm only buying deals at 60%, and I started looking at an aspect of, hey, let's get more creative. How can I actually be profitable at 75% or 80% so I can buy more deals? Because all of a sudden I had this huge team of subs that were working for me that needed work, so I cared about them because it wasn't about me anymore. I just wanted to put them in properties, and if I made $20,000, then I was going to do it. I wasn't looking for the $50,000 deals, right? So when you have your team in place, you can start doing more in volume. You remember, you've cut the GC out because remember, if a GC's in this category and you're making $16,000, GC is probably going to take like half of that or a majority of it, and then you're like, well, I'm not going to make any money because I have to have a GC. Well, I just taught you how to have a sub team where you can completely cut the GC out, and now you can do more in volume because your sub team is really good, they're loyal, you're giving them constant work, and you can negotiate on their labor costs because they have so much work, they don't have to worry about looking for work elsewhere, which helps a lot with their stress, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm telling you, you could scale your sub team so good where they become like family, right? So some of my sub guys, they're like literally my family members, right? I throw in bonuses like, hey, let's go to some FC Dallas games. I have a management team that manages certain properties, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to look at it from the aspect of time and what your goals are. Now, if it's your goal is to make, hey, I just want to make an extra $50,000 to $150,000 a year just by flipping a couple of properties, that's great. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a lot easier if you just bite the bullet and understand, hey, it's actually going to cost me more money up front to actually scale my business to do more deals. So back to the aspect of that repeat method. All right, so let's just say you bought the deal, you found the subs, you did the construction, you put it on MLS, you sold it, now you've made money, right? You've made profit. What are you going to do with that profit? So now it's time to really understand what your goals are and what you want to do in the flipping business. And what I did, especially being young, it's like, hey, if I made an extra $10,000 a month, that's more than what I could handle, which I was good. So I was super conservative, and I'm still super conservative on what I spend my money on. And I invest a majority of my money back into my business. So after you made money one time, you should be in an understanding where, okay, I did one flip, and that one flip turns into 2 flips. Those 2 flips turn into 4 flips. Those 4 flips turn into 8 flips. Those 8 flips turn into 16 flips, right? With that profit made. Now remember, you're still paying yourself a salary. Let's just say you're just making $10K a month, and then all your money's going back into your business, right? You're investing that money into equity. You have to understand it's kind of like you're putting money into a savings account. But if you look at it from a standpoint of, are you going to put it in Chase Bank and just let it sit there, or are you going to invest it back into your business and what the ROI looks like? But And flipping, it is super awesome because there's a bunch of deals out there that you can buy where you can really leverage your profits and grow your flipping business with this strategy. Now, obviously there's a bunch of other tactics that go into it and that we're gonna cover at later topics, but what is your goal? What is your vision? What do you want to accomplish? Do you want to get into real estate to be what you're making at your job just to live free? That's fine and dandy. But what I'm telling you is if you stay conservative on your profits and just dump it back into your business, you can really scale it on a massive level, especially if you focus on that time versus the ROI on your cash. Your ROI on your time is a lot more valuable, but when you respect that, you're going to be a lot profitable over time. So, for example, let's say you got 16 flips going, which is awesome. Then you got 14, 15, 10 selling every month. Then you got all this profit coming back in. If you ever want to shut it off, cool, you still built equity into your business where you can just shut it off and just collect all those profits and be done, right? So, especially if you stay under that 250,000 ARV price point, you're not going to really see an issue if you see market adjustments just because those people are still looking for their first time house, right? All right. So that's kind of that repeat cycle that's worked for me in my business. I hope it helps you guys. But just some keynotes to kind of understand is there's deals everywhere. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on Craigslist. But you have to understand if you're not doing the marketing, don't expect to pay 60% for the property. You're going to pay a premium just because somebody else paid for the marketing, paid for that sales aspect. And that you are the rehabber, that investor, where you can handle the construction part. So, for example, for me, especially when I buy from wholesalers, I don't care how much they're making or whatever. I just want that deal at that specific price point and that percentage, and then I just float it back into my cycle of that repeat cycle. All right, so that's what I have for you guys today. If you have any questions, drop them. I'll try to get back to you guys. You can follow me on Instagram, thedonovanruffin.com. We're going to host this show every Thursday. Huge shout out to Propelio because we use that every day in my business. If you're not using Propelio, I don't know what you're doing. You're wasting your time, right? But I hope to catch you guys next week. Stay tuned.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Batch Skip Tracing, Think Multifamily, CreativeCashflow.com, and Lifeonaire.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.